Okay. Well,
It is.
are you all comfortable? Good. Jill, can I just say that I would like to change agenda items 4 and 5 around. So you give your report first. Is that all right? So everybody will have the town clerk's report before the chairperson's announcements. Right. Apologies tonight. I think we've got an apology from Councillor O'Connor, haven't we? Sadly.
Yes, you've got apologies from Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Emma Dawson.
Thank you. Do any members have any pecuniary interest to declare on these agenda items? Nobody? Lovely, thank you. Right, the minutes. First of all, the minutes of the extraordinary virtual annual town meeting. Is everybody happy with those?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Would somebody like to propose? Councillor Pennington, seconded by Councillor Hannah Scott. The finance and general purposes minutes. Has anyone made any comments on those, Jill?
No, these have been agreed by the committee already, so they are just to be received.
Okay. So we're not voting on those then?
Yes, please, if you can vote to receive them,
Yep.
but they have been agreed by the committee.
Okay, if someone would like to propose, Councillor Wallin, and seconded by Councillor Green. The virtual planning meeting. Are there as a proposal? Helen Page, Councillor Page.
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Wallin. Thank you.
And sorry, can we just make sure that everyone agrees on all those minutes?
Yes, I
thank you.
dipped through those. I'm sorry. I do apologise.
That's all right.
Right, the first one, the extraordinary virtual annual town meeting. Everybody in agreement with that? Next one is the finance. Thumbs up, finance. And the planning, thumbs up for planning. Thank you. Sorry about that. Beginner's nerves. Right, we have the swapped around agenda item here. Jill, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get to my report. Okay, so it's another busy month for the Town Council. We're continuing with the support where required. A special thanks as always to Laura Bungard and Ray and Christina, who have undertaken the delivery of medication diligently. Sadly, Laura, we know, has now moved to a semi-retired role. So I'd like to wish her all the best, and I know that I speak for the Town Council when I say that she will be sorely missed. I've contacted CALC in relation to inquiring about online training for members, and they are currently looking at this possibility and will provide an update in due course. I just felt that was quite important as we didn't have the dynamic councillor course, and obviously if this situation continues, I know it's something CALC want to explore. The notice board has now been constructed, which was supported by Fixology for the outside of the office, and the application for consent to display an advertisement has been submitted to TDC Planning, and I await their decision. Scarecrow Festival is gaining momentum, and I'm pleased to confirm that we now have 15 scarecrows pledged. I've been contacted by St Crispin School this morning, who are very excited about having scarecrows on their site. And they also said that the pupils that cannot attend the school, they're having them involved as well, so they can still feel connected to the school and participate. So I think that's a really, really good idea. TDC signage was successfully installed and flyers delivered on Saturday. This was to help raise the awareness of the social distance guidelines in the town. And now that the additional retailers are opening today, or Monday rather. There is a further conference call on Thursday this week with TDC for an update, and also an opportunity for the local councils to feedback on any potential problems. So if you can let Councillor Cornford know if there's anything that you are aware of, and she can feed that through to the TDC conference call for you. Westgate Bloom on the train station needed some TLC. And I've been very grateful to Peter Hasted, who's volunteered to help me undertake some stubborn weeding and mulching. Peter's also helped with the watering, which is vital to ensure that we don't lose all the plants in this hot spell on the station. If any members do want to get involved and volunteer, your help would definitely be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say that it's lots of thanks to everybody throughout the last couple of months, everybody who's helped out. As our clerk said, Laura Bungard has semi-retired. She's gone to work in her locality, immediate locality. And I know there was a lot of upset when Tony and Pete from before, who were community wardens, they left, and we thought we'll never get anybody like that again, but we did. We got Laura. So I think we should be very positive about who comes along next for our community warden position. But many thanks to Laura. The volunteers as well. I mean, you had, Jill said, 24 volunteers who were out there helping alongside some of the really key dynamic duo couples and counsellors. So thank you to them, even when the weather let them down and they got soaked to the bone. Of course, we're not completely out of lockdown. There's still people shielding until the 31st of July. And one councillor, Hannah Scott, pointed out that a lot of people are feeling quite insecure and unsure of themselves going out into the community again. So if anybody is wanting to help by, for instance, Bronwyn has been taking people on the bus to go shopping, and they very quickly reacclimatized to be able to manage their shopping and being out in the community after the quiet of their homes. And if anyone would like to help with that support, could they email Chloe, finance assistant? The email address is finance@westgateonsea.gov.uk. And also for anybody listening to the video after the meeting, it's 01843 836 182 if you want to help reacclimatise residents in the community. The positives from the lockdown are better relationships with district and more volunteers. Oh, hello, Matt. I didn't see you. Sorry. Good evening. And also, according to Mary Portas, it's a great opportunity for local high streets, which obviously we're going to embrace, with improved community connections and local being absolutely tops, because it's local that supported all the communities during the lockdown. And one other point, hot off the press from NALC, is the Standards Committee, which was advertised in early January that in their June meeting, this is the Standards Committee in London, we're going to review the Code of Conduct for parish and town councils, and that is definitely going ahead. And there's a consultation which goes on until the 17th of August, so that's something that we can contribute to. Thank you very much.
Councillor Crawford.
Hello.
I just wanted to bring to your attention, Councillor Wallen dropped out there, so I'm just going to admit him back.
Ah, yes, I meant to say at the beginning of the meeting, we need to let the clerk know, as per normal physical meetings, if you're going to leave the room. I didn't say that, sorry. Shall we just wait until he returns?
I think some people need to mute their mics.
Well, shall we move on, Jill? Is that all right? Yes. Ah, Councillor Wallen, you fell off the edge. What happened? You need to unmute. You're muted.
Yes, the connection went.
Ah, okay, that's a shame, because it worked really well the other evening. All right, so you may drop off at any point. Only I was just saying, if anybody needs to leave the meeting,
As could any of us.
you must tell the clerk beforehand, as you would in a physical meeting. Thanks very much. Right, there's nobody from the public to speak, so I'm now going to hand over to the clerk, our proper officer, for items 7, 8, 9 and 10. Thank you, Jill. Starting with the annual return and the risk assessment.
Thank you. Okay. So, as well, some of you may not be aware, we have an annual governance accountability return each year, which is part of our audit process. This is a very important time of the year for council. We need to look at our responsibilities, our risk assessments, and make sure that we've got everything as far as possible mitigated or covered. So I did update the risk assessment and management scheme, which I shared with members, and to try and bring your attention to the areas that have been either enhanced or that are new, I highlighted those for you. So the first section you can see is where we comply with the HMRC regulations. So I just add there that the VAT payments and claims are calculated by me using our RBS software and checked by a councillor auditor. Obviously the insurance as well, because that was a different insurance provider than the previous year, so I just updated all the existing cover so that all the correct figures are there. Then if you turn over to the precept, I added the fact that each committee is consulted and considers the budget requirements for the following year, which is submitted to the Finance and General Purposes Committee, and then that is collated and recommended to full council for the budget for the coming year. Then we had illegal expenditure by members. That previously stated that we would go to the monitoring officer at Thanet District Council. So I just wanted to make sure it's clear that any illegal expenditure would obviously go to full council for investigation in the first instance, obviously. Okay, and then on the next page, I just tweaked the non-compliance with the health and safety legislation for the office space, so that I covered there that I ensure all the reports are obtained and in date, and that we procure professional services for any plumbing or electrical works. And then again, when it says policies and procedures, there's just a little section there about the risk of members not being versed in council policies and procedures. So I've just said that training is essential for all members to ensure there's a better understanding of council responsibilities and the role of a town councillor, and the core documents that we operate, the standing orders, financial regulations and terms of reference, are the governance tools for our corporate body. Again, then it's management and planning for the corporate body, and I just wanted to mention that we've adopted our forward plan, which details the values of the corporate body and identifies the key themes and priorities for the next 4 years. And then obviously, clearly in this situation, business continuity has been key. Just to highlight the fact that we had laptops for all the office-based staff if we all had to work from home. And obviously our phone system allows for the phones to be diverted to outside telephone lines, which has been invaluable. And thank you to Councillor Nightingale and Councillor Page from all the others that have helped in that period. So that was just where I'd updated the risk assessment and management scheme. So that's the first document that we need to members to look at, agree or debate if there's any alterations you would like. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you very much. That's really comprehensive. And I know you've said that, you know, it's not a definitive list, and if anybody has any other items they wish to add, that can be done. Do any councillors have any comments on the risk assessment management scheme? No? Is everybody happy? Would somebody like to propose that we accept these, please? Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Page. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. Everybody in favour? Councillor Corford? Thank you.
Sorry, I'll get the hang of it.
Councillor Cornford, I think there's some people that haven't got it on mute and you keep on having some background noise, just so you know.
Can everybody ensure that they're on mute unless they wish to speak?
Thank you. Okay, so the next section is the Statement of Internal Control, which again is an important document. It tells you the scope and responsibility of the Town Council, the purpose of the system of the internal control, and also the internal controls environment. Most of this we covered last year, so there wasn't anything very much to alter. Obviously, the internal audit process, we appointed our internal auditor as the last 2 years I've been here, and we've had that internal report. This then leads, after we've done this annual governance and accountability return, this is what leads to our external auditor, PKF Littlejohn, all the documentation sent off to them for the final audit check. We've reviewed our effectiveness as well. We conducted an annual review of the effectiveness of the system of internal control, which obviously part of that is the work of the full council, me as the clerk and the RFO, the appointed councillor responsible for conducting internal audit checks, Councillor O'Connor, and PKF Littlejohn, who are the council's external auditors who are appointed by the government. The last section you'll see is the only section that's been altered since last year, and this is where you list any significant internal control issues of the council in the previous financial year. So I've just mentioned here, the Town Council commissioned a thorough investigation conducted by neighbouring parish councillors following the identification of procedural anomalies in 2017-18. The actions as a result have been noted and implemented. And then the second point, the training for members has been delayed due to the national pandemic coronavirus. Thank you.
Do any councillors have any comments? Jill, can I just say that on number 3, the council, we were going to incorporate the town clerk in that at the end of that first sentence. So it's not entirely the responsibility of the chairperson for ensuring all council decisions are lawful. Thank you. Is everybody happy with that? I just thought that should go in there because as the clerk is our legal advisor, whoever is chairman should have that support. Sorry, I've come unconnected. Right, would someone like to propose? Councillor Scott, Hannah Scott, and Councillor Martin Pennington. Thank you. Jill, the annual governance statement. Everybody. Oh goodness, slow learner. Yes, is everybody in agreement with that? Everybody agree? Councillor Wallin, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So that then takes us on to the next stage, which is our governance statements. And this clearly is one of the very important aspects because as a corporate body here, we are agreeing that we have fulfilled some of these responsibilities. So what I need to do is read each of the statements to all members, and we need to actually vote on each statement separately to ensure that you all understand and the what that responsibility means. I'll read that section as well. Okay. So number 1, we've put in place arrangements for effective financial management during the year and for the preparation of the accounting statements. Yes to this means that we prepared the accounting statements in accordance with the accounts and audit regulations. Is everyone happy with that one? Thank you. Okay. The second one, we maintained an adequate system of internal control, including measures designed to prevent and detect fraud and corruption, and we reviewed its effectiveness. Yes to this statement means we've made proper arrangements and accepted responsibility for safeguarding the public money and resources in our charge. Everyone's happy with that one? Thank you. Number 3, We took all reasonable steps to assure ourselves that there were no matters of actual or potential non-compliance with laws, regulations and proper practices that could have a significant financial effect on the ability of this authority to conduct its business or manage its finances. Saying yes to this statement means we have only done what is the legal power to do and have complied with proper practices in doing so. Everybody happy with that one? Thank you. Number 4. We provided proper opportunity during the year for the exercise of electors' rights in accordance with the requirements of the Accounts and Audit Regulations. Yes to this statement means during the year we gave all persons interested the opportunity to inspect and ask questions about this authority's accounts. And just for those that aren't or haven't been here in that period before, that's about to commence in the 29th of June. We have to give the electorate 6 weeks, or anyone actually that's interested, 6 weeks to ask for copies of our accounts and to have a look at them. So is everyone happy with that? Thank you.
Councillor Wallen, were you happy with that?
I think he might have froze. Oh.
Councillor Wallen, were you happy with that last one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can you do thumbs up? Because this is quite important.
Okay, so number 5, we carried out an assessment of the risks facing this authority and took appropriate steps to manage those risks, including the introduction of internal controls and or external insurance cover where required. Yes to this means we considered and documented the financial and other risks it faces and dealt with them properly. Everyone happy with that? Thank you. Number 6, we maintained throughout the year an adequate and effective system of internal audit of the accounting records and control systems. Yes to this means we've arranged for a competent person, independent of the financial controls and procedures, to give an objective view on whether internal controls meet the needs of this smaller authority. Everyone happy with that? Thank you. Number 7, we took appropriate action on all matters raised in reports from internal and external audit. Yes to this means we have responded to matters brought to our attention by internal and external audit. Everyone happy with that? Thank you. Number 8, so there's only another one you'll be pleased to know. We considered whether any litigation, liabilities or commitments, events or transactions occurring either during or after the year end have a financial impact on this authority, and where appropriate have included them in the accounting statements. Saying yes to this means we have disclosed everything that we should have about our business activity during the year, including events taking place after year end if relevant. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you. Okay, so the last section, number 9, it doesn't apply to us because we don't have a trust fund, so just in case anyone know. Okay, so thank you, Councillor Cornford. If you want to just have an actual vote on all those collectively, I'll be fine then, thank you.
All right, if we could all vote. Thank you, because these are important. This is you know, public money. This is saying that we're doing everything that we should do. So we're under serious scrutiny from outside. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that's section 1 of the annual governance accountability return that we've agreed. So that then leads us to consider the accounting statements, which are next. So this is actually, we use the RBS system and that calculates our year-end figures, and then obviously that's looked at against our bank reconciliation as well. So all these figures you'll see in the left-hand column are year ending 2019, and then that compares to year ending 2020. So all the figures that are in those boxes are calculated from the RBS system and reconciled as well with our accounts. So unless there are any questions, you see I've dated it the 11th of June 2020, and then if members are all in agreement, myself and the chairperson have to sign this, and this is part of the document that goes off to PKF Littlejohn, our external auditors. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Is everybody happy with those? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, So just as an additive as well, I just wanted to clarify with you, I included the annual internal audit report, which again makes up another page that goes off to the external auditor. So that is our auditor, David Bucket. When he did the report, he actually signs that section of the AGAR as well. And that goes off with his little additional note at the website, because last year we couldn't provide the date stamp for the posting of the requirement to notice of public rights. So it's just a little addendum that we'll be sending off to the auditor to say that this year I will be doing a date stamp or screenshots when I post on the website. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jill. We're on to item number 11, the representation on the Thanet Area Committee. And this is, well, exactly what it says, a representative from the Town Council on the area committee with all the other parish and town councils, which Martin has been doing. And Jill, do you want to say anything about this?
Only that obviously Councillor Pennington has been attending those. I have attended two myself. I have to say they are interesting. Obviously they're not taking place currently with the situation, but I think it would be important for you as the new chairperson to attend at some point as well. So that's why I thought it was a good idea if we proposed that you and Councillor Pennington represent the Town Council, obviously with members' agreement.
Yes, thank you, Jill. Does anybody have any objection to myself and Councillor Pennington attending these meetings when they recommence? Is there any chance of them being virtual?
I don't know if Councillor Pennington's heard anything about that.
No, nothing. Okay. Yes, so if you're in agreement, would somebody like to propose? Thank you. Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Green. Thank you. And is everybody in agreement? Thank you. Right, item number 12, the cycling on the promenade. Just before, Councillor Wallen has been looking into this, but just before he gives us his report, the clerk has some bylaw information for us. Thank you, Jill.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I thought it was useful to share with members the bylaws that are currently on the Thanet District Council website. Clearly, the bylaw that I've sent you does permit bicycles on the promenade, and also the area is part of the National Cycling Network, which does permit bicycles on that route as well along the promenade. I have contacted Thanet District Council and asked if they are still reviewing the bylaws, because that was my understanding about 18 months ago they were reviewing, but obviously with what's happening at the moment that might be on hold. So as soon as I get a response I can update members on that. I've also contacted Your Leisure to ask them about the conditions of the beach huts, because I think that's quite a key area as well, because some of the beach hut users are out onto the railings near the sea. So they will occupy almost all the promenade, because they are, you know, obviously walking across the promenade to their area, the seats, and you know, they'll lie in their lie-back chairs with their umbrellas up on the railings, so they are using that space between their beach hut and the sea, so that wouldn't give much space for anybody else. So I'm looking into that as well, because I think that's another key consideration. Thank you.
Absolutely. I have been. No, okay. Can you hear me now? Yes, thank you. Yes, it's 6 foot in front of the huts, Jill. Councillor Wallen, what have you discovered about cyclists and where they'd like to be on the promenade, etc.?
All it is I've had a constituent complain in inverted commas that they've had cycles running too close to them, particularly when one of their neighbours is a young girl, probably about 8 or 9, who's deaf and so couldn't even hear them behind. And an accident is going to happen. When, who knows, but something needs to be done to try and control it. Now, the idea was to send in a formal letter to Madeline Homer at TDC to bring this to her attention, but the idea was that it should be done jointly as a town council letter rather than from individual town councillors, and so it needs to be discussed and agreed at a meeting that the town council would make this approach.
Councillor Pennington. Councillor Pennington, did you want?
Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I would like to support this initiative. I also have had several complaints about, let's say, aggressive cycling, which does endanger people on the promenade. And one of the difficulties is that the bikes concerned aren't equipped with any audible means of warning of approach, which is required under the highway code if you're on a normal highway. So the difficulty is particularly when they're coming at someone from behind and the person isn't aware of that. If the bike collided with a young child, the effects could be serious. I spoke to one mother who'd taken her daughter of, I would guess, 7 or 8 with her bike on the promenade, and she was also concerned about these bikes and the way in which a daughter might make the wrong decision about which way to go. And this also complicates, I think, the proposal for a bike lane, because I don't know that kids would be conscious if it was only painted on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. Councillor Page.
Thank you. I think it's very clear that we need to bear in mind that this is part of the national cycle route and does form part of the Viking Trail, which for cyclists goes for 25 miles round Thanet, as close as possible to the coastline. But I think Councillor Pennington's remark about audible warnings, there is a legal requirement to have a bell and sound a bell, and that does not happen. The speeds that some of the cyclists are travelling at are very, very fast. I was going to say almost race speeds, but I don't think you could go quite as fast as that along there. And I wondered if, as part of the considerations for this, apart from obvious things like better, bigger, more obvious signage, and other aspects that we can consider, I've been looking, and there are several national cycle organisations which can be reached through their websites, and whether as part of this we could consider, once we've decided how we want to impose the necessary requirements, whether we could then transfer that information onto the national cycling websites, so that for any cyclists planning routes along the Viking Trail, they know what the rules and regs are before they come out on their bicycles, and understand that there may be limitations along the area in Westgate. Thank you.
Right, that's really helpful, Councillor Page. Thank you very much. Councillor Nightingale. Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Matthew Scott wanted to say, and then Councillor Nightingale. Thank you.
Hello.
And then Ring.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I don't really want to come at us attacking cyclists. I mean, you know, for us to be in this sort of a climate change society where we're encouraging people to cycle, then tell them you can't. So, I mean, I take cycling as a bit of a pastime and a hobby. I mean, I don't personally cycle along the promenade myself, purely because of, as our town clerk has pointed out, where I find that pedestrians, residents, dog users do tend to sort of take over the path, and it does get obviously frustrating for cyclists when they are trying to weave in and out. I mean, from my experience, when I've walked along the actual promenade, I've seen cyclists to be more than accommodating. They've gone at a reasonable speed. I mean, these could be certainly different times, but this was on a Saturday when I was doing my little walk around, ensuring that our bins are being used. And yeah, the cycling where there was a high footfall of pedestrians, the cyclists were very mindful, they slowed down. And then once those pedestrians were no longer about, they utilised the national cycling. I mean, to get to the crux of my point, basically I have approached our KCC councillor because I was under the illusion that we've got some funding for some cycling initiatives, and I know that funding does need to be spent. And I think what we kind of need to do is find and come into an agreement how we can sort of best utilise that. At the moment, KCC are not particularly keen with providing cycling paths, but I personally feel we do. I think having a cycling path there will actually just give sort of a credence to our residents and our dog walkers that this is actually a cycling path. It can be used as such. And it also will allow for people who are walking about to expect cycling. And as Councillor Pellington has rightly said, it does have to be on the ownership of our cyclists as well. We do need those to ensure that they are paying good attention and using the bells when needed. So, I mean, it is a case of everyone being mindful of one another. When I'm cycling to Recall, for example, which is fundamentally considered a cycling path, pedestrians do use it. I'm normally often finding myself having to ring my cycling bell well in advance because it is just basically covered. I mean, there's loads of things we could talk about. I mean, you know, cyclists themselves, especially the fair weather cyclists, find that they don't really apply the same rules as you would apply to the road, keep to the left and things like that. I mean, I think a lot of it is down to potentially educating everyone, those who are cycling, those who have taken up cycling, to let them know and just be mindful of the pedestrians. But pedestrians themselves need to realise that they are going to be cyclists there. I mean, when people are saying they're speeding by, I mean, if you're walking 5 miles per hour and someone's riding past 10 miles per hour, that's going to appear faster than what you are currently walking. And I mean, me as a cyclist, I don't creep up on people. I certainly make sure that they are well aware. So, I mean, I think it's a lot of hearsay, and obviously this is all being embellished by people. And I think there's a big disdain for some people for cyclists and vice versa. And I think we can all really do our part. So I think the point I'm trying to make is we as a town council really do need to come to a consensus. I would like to possibly see the ability to have at least cycle markings on there. How we are to go about that, I've been scratching my head. At first I thought it would be closer to the actual walls, but that might not be possible because those do allow for seating. Then I was thinking maybe towards the barrier side, again, a bit of a contentious one. But then I thought maybe just slap down in the middle, allowing pedestrians to walk on one side, one on the other. I mean, I'll leave that to everyone else. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
I feel strongly.
Councillor Scott, that's good, and it's good to know that you have a bell and you're legal. Councillor Nightingale.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think things will be a lot better if we were able to have the barriers across in the areas in front of the cafes, both in St Mildred's Bay and in West Bay, which we've never had in West Bay this year, although Jill said she did see them once in West Bay. I think the thing is that would at least reduce the speed for that distance, as well as being safety for the people who are going to and from the cafes, particularly now when the queues are going down and around the corners sometimes. I don't know why the barriers haven't been put up, but it would certainly slow down a direct route. And I just overheard in West Bay 2 weeks ago, 2 cyclists who stood side by side and said, right now, it's 2 miles from there to where you want to go, so just go for it. So there are people who are using it as a fast racetrack, and I just think, as Councillor Wanning said, it is an accident waiting to happen. and at least having the barriers up would reduce their speed to some extent. And I think with children and people using their beach huts, which they're quite legitimately to use, particularly over those areas, I think there should be either a speed restriction or there should be those barriers imposed, which would at least cut the speed down during the course of their enjoyment.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. Councillor Green and then Councillor Hannah Scott. Dr. Hannah Scott, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. There's plenty of information to be found on British Cycling, which I'm a member of. So there's lots of information, and people are encouraged by British Cycling, and there's large government funding goes out to British Cycling. And most people think that British Cycling is just the support body for Team GB, which it isn't. It encompasses all cycle clubs. I'm a member of 2 clubs, which you have to be a member of British Cycling. Anyway, moving on to that. There should be a speed restriction. If you're part of a club or anybody who's a serious rider will slow down, as well as if they ring a bell, or if they don't ring a bell, they will say passing on your left or passing on your right. They also need to educate. This is from my my opinion as a cyclist, that I've nearly run over 2 or 3 dogs because they're poorly educated, where people see bikes come in and they don't even bother to keep hold of their dogs. And I think that, you know, it's not just the cyclists that need educating, it's also runners who are running along with headphones on. There's not many cyclists that will run along listening to music, ride along, sorry, listening to music, because generally you can't hear the traffic flow when you're on the road. So I've also found that runners can also be a bit of a hindrance. As for the path, or the cycle path, that seems that, you know, a great idea, but again, it's educating people, because I ride down to Deal and further out, and the cycle path on the front of Deal, you find people walking along on the cycle path, and they take absolutely no notice. So it's education, which is everything. And if we can come up with the silver bullet to sort it out, then that'd be perfect. But I think it's going to be very difficult. I think the first thing is reducing people down to walking pace, and if TDC could reintroduce the bay inspectors to police that area, that would also be pretty beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Dr. Hannah Scott.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about sort of the cycle paths or the promenade that's quite wide, because I don't think there's a massive problem there. But if you sit along Westgate Bay, there is a massive problem around sort of the cafe and around the beach huts, where people are cycling very fast. So I think it's not so much about the other areas where the promenade's wide, so people can cycle sort of at, you know, a normal speed. That's not an issue. But I think it's the problem is in front of the beach huts. I think we just need to have this ability to put the barriers out during high season. So I think the emails were going around, and I suggested that perhaps in the same way that we have the laws for the dogs not being allowed on the beach, we could have the same kind of hours for cyclists to not be allowed to actually cycle in front of beach huts. So I think if that's just a standard law, or a sort of an addition to the bylaw around the whole of Thanet, that people have to dismount in front of beach huts, which is usually just it's a small area, it won't disrupt the whole of the cycle path so much, then I think people will kind of get to grips with that. But you know, it's not about sort of professional cyclists or, you know, ringing the bell. It's actually about these particular spaces that become highly populated with people. And it's not hearsay, and it's not, you know, embellished. I've seen numerous people nearly being knocked over because people are speeding past those areas where there are lots of people. So, you know, this does need to be taken seriously. And it's not offensive against people that are good cyclists at all, and take it, you know, obviously take their cycling very seriously. I think it's about making sure that everybody kind of gets the same message and gets the same rules in front of these particular areas.
Sorry. Jill.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add a point about bylaws as well, just for members. Basically, the bylaw is only as good as the enforcement. And the issue we do have is enforcement, because without the bay inspectors, there is no enforcement. I think that's why they haven't put the barriers up. So I think that's as well, I mean, signage I think is a fantastic idea. Bylaws, we can definitely look to TDC and see if there's anything we can do with that. But just to bear that in mind, that obviously bylaws do need enforcement, and if there isn't anyone doing the enforcing, you're always going to get some people that won't abide by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Yes, and we can't have the same sort of restrictions that we do with dogs, because it is the National Cycle Path and the Viking Trail. It seems that education is important, and also liaising with the national cyclists. And how many groups are there? I mean, is it just the national cyclists, Councillor Page, Councillor Green?
Thank you. There are a number, and Tim can back this up. I mean, just looking as a person who's not a member of one of these groups, I've discovered 4 main ones myself, but I'm sure that that's probably just a small number, because these cycling bodies exist for slightly different reasons. But Tim, Councillor Green can probably educate us a little bit more on that, as he is actually a member of one of them.
Councillor Green?
Yeah, there's a number of different cycling bodies in the UK, but the only proper cycling body is British Cycling, which is recognised. And anybody that races, anybody that rides for leisure or any other things who has an interest joins that body. But there are other groups. That all groups will obviously be interested in cycle safety when using bike paths, and also public safety for pedestrians and footfall areas. So,
thank you. And it seems that communication and education are really important on this, and TDC would like our views on it. Councillor Wallin, I was going to say, what would you like to do about this?
Yeah,
It seems like we need to do some more research on the subject.
Yeah,
because
that's fair enough.
It would be good to go to TDC with some definitive comments, answers.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, the issue that was raised to me was about a deaf child of 8, 10, something like that. And it doesn't matter how much you ring your bell or play loud music, they're not going to hear it because they're deaf. So the idea of a bell being a solution is not valid. There's got to be some other way, and they've got to ride more responsibly and not go too close to people.
That's education and communication, I would think. How about Councillor Scott, Matthew Scott?
Hello there. Yeah, I mean, just sort of coming back, like I said, I mean, to my understanding, having spoken to our KCC councillor, apparently there's funding there. It needs to be spent. I don't see there being a harm that we as, I'm going to be late, like, get my words out. I'm going to be speaking, shall I say? Let's not try and get the old dictionary out today, shall we? I'm going to be having a conversation with the officer, which is, I believe it's James Wright or James White or something like that. I'll never get people's names right. And putting forward my suggestions, but I'd like to just obviously get an idea of the town council suggestions about maybe just going for the cycling path, seeing what could be an idea. It's a visual thing. I mean, if David Wallen, Councillor Wallen, has highlighted the fact that this particular resident was deaf, then some visual impact to say that there is a cycle path. Be careful. I mean, you know, when there's roads, you don't hang about on roads. You know cars are coming. You expect that. So with a cycle path, I think it will give that there. I mean, it could all just fall under, and then we might have to go to a different solution. But I just think with this, there's money there. If we can grab it and get it spent, and it helps, perform and make our promenade safer. I mean, I personally don't ride it. I go on the road, but for anyone else, they know that it's there. I mean, it's always going to be a tough one, especially with enforcement and stuff like that. But that's my suggestion, to potentially just go in and suggest that, really. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Scott. We need to consolidate our ideas on this and what we're going to say to KCC and TDC. Councillor Page.
Thank you. I was just going to suggest that perhaps the PHE committee should put together, considering all the points that have been discussed this evening, a plan to suggest to TDC aspects that we would like seriously to be taken into consideration in order to avail ourselves of that funding. Because we've all taken a turn this evening and come up with some very good ideas, suggestions and comments. I think the next step now should be that we get a group of us together to combine all of those and put them into a proper strategy with things that we agree to take to TDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. As the proposer, Councillor Wallin, for this, what do you think? Do you agree with what Councillor Page has said?
Basically, in principle, yes. Simple as that. Something needs to be done, and there isn't an ideal solution because you can't solve something like this. But we should make moves to try and do something. What the solution is, nobody knows at the moment, but all we can do is try, and ultimately it'll be TDC, not us, I guess, but we need to try and push for something to happen.
So
collectively.
Would you say it would be a good idea to take this to the Planning, Highways and Environment Committee with everybody passing on their ideas, and then the committee can look at it, consolidate the ideas and have a solid argument to put forward as to what would be best for St Mildred's Bay and West Bay, which is our concern?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Thank you. Jill, what have we formulated there? Because wording wise, because that really is Councillor Wallin's proposal.
You've got Councillor Matthew Scott wants to speak. Yeah.
Oh, Councillor Matthew Scott, sorry.
Sorry, I'll keep it very brief. The only thing I will just say is that, to my understanding, the funding's time sensitive. I can't give you that time, but I will find out and I'll come back to you, because obviously we don't want to put a lot of effort into this and find out that nothing can be gained from it. But yeah, so I'll come back to you with that. But yeah, I'm happy to support the plan in the highways.
Thank you. Are you seconding that?
Yes, yeah, based on, I mean, like I say, I'll keep everyone up to date based on what we get back in regards to the funding and the availability and how long it will take. I will second that, yes.
How long do you think it would take you to get that information to us?
I will ask this evening and follow up tomorrow and hopefully get an answer by the end of the week.
And we'll receive that via, can we receive that straight from Councillor Matthew Scott, Jill? Bearing in mind you won't be in the office?
That's fine. I'm happy if Councillor Matthew Scott can share that direct with you.
Yeah, I'll email all councillors as well as the admin and copy in all the relevant people.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Hannah, Dr. Scott.
Yeah, I was just trying to find the email sent from Emma. I picked up on this idea of the funding and that it's time sensitive. Perhaps we could invite Emma to the Planning, Highways and Environment Committee if we're within the time frame to be able to look at that pot of money. and see what she suggests as well, as to how we can access that if we agree on a particular way forward.
Thank you.
I
Councillor
think it's
Pennington.
yeah, Emma.
Thank you. I think it's a question not only of spending the money, but spending it wisely. I did, with your permission, want to know from the clerk whether we as a town council have any rights to put signs up on the promenade, or whether it's purely within the remit of KCC or TDC. Thank you.
Yeah, so actually it's Thanet District Council. On the promenade, it's Thanet District Council. You need to seek their permission. And that's certainly a conversation. I've already contacted them about the bylaws, and depending on what the response is about the bylaws, that's something we can explore with Thanet District Council as well for signage.
Yes, I think I'm correct in saying they are keen to get the issue solved, aren't they? Thank you, Jill. Could you tell us what our proposal finally was, so we can all take a vote on that?
Okay, I think from the notes I've taken that members are resolving that the actual Planning, Highways and Environment Committee, you're delegating authority to them to come up with the strategy, taking into account the points that members have raised this evening.
Thank you, Jill. And that was proposed by Councillor Wallin and seconded by Councillor Matthew Scott.
Matthew Scott, yeah.
And are we all in agreement with that?
Thank you.
Councillor, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Item number 13 is, this was discussed at planning, and Councillor Dr. Hannah Scott has recommendations for the terms of reference for the Planning, Highways and Environment Committee.
It was just two words changed to include the environmental sustainability aspect of the planning committee. So it was just two extra words, adding on environmental sustainability, I think it was. So that was the amendment.
Did members look at this? Did they look at the terms? Did they see the highlighted words? And are we all in agreement? First of all, Councillor Dr. Hannah Scott, would you like to propose that, and then a councillor can second it?
So yeah, so the reason behind it was because we're sort of aiming towards an environmental policy in the future, and all of the application that comes in to the planning committee, we're looking at it from an environmental aspect, as well as sort of all the other planning aspects, but particularly in this period of time, climate emergency, we need to view planning applications in an environmental sustainability viewpoint as well. So if I can propose that we've just added those two words, and environmental sustainability, to the terms of reference.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Matthew Scott. Is everybody in favour with that? Thank you. Councillor Wallin, were you in favour of that? Frozen. Okay. Item number 14, the role of tree biodiversity warden. This is exciting. Over to you, Councillor Dr. Scott.
So this is about basically, if you look in Broadstairs and St Peter's Tree Warden documentation, they have a scheme where they can appoint a volunteer or volunteers to undertake certain roles with regards to trees. So all things tree related in their local area. They can go about and they can sort of look at reporting early signs of pests or disease or vandalism to trees. They can gather information. They can survey and record information about the importance of trees, wildlife or heritage in their area. And look out for opportunities to plant more trees. So we have just had a brilliant chap move to Westgate called Peter Hasted. He runs the Sunken Gardens and has organised all the volunteers there to create a really wonderful area. He also spearheads a lot of the Isle of Thanet Trees and Wood Society's work. So they've planted hundreds of trees in Dane Park and also Dane Valley. And he has put himself forward as a tree warden volunteer for the town council. So it's a proposal to set this scheme up, which will take some work that Jill, the clerk, is willing to undertake, looking into sort of the volunteer scheme and taking Peter under our wing, as he'll be an amazing asset to the town council. So that's the proposal.
Thank you, Hannah. Councillor Dr. Scott. Jill.
Yeah, just to say, obviously with the report, you'll see that the information, I'm suggesting that the Human Resources Committee would draft a role description, because we need to make sure that whoever's doing the role undertakes it and they have the boundaries that they are adhering to. And obviously we need to make sure that every activity they're doing is undertaken or covered by our insurance and all our risk assessments and everything like that. So it is very important we do that through the Human Resources Committee. And then obviously we need to check with the Finance and General Purposes Committee as well to make sure there's budget for the potential expenses they may need. And anyone who's volunteering, we should do a fixed term for the role as well. So it's not open-ended that they are appointed into Millennium, but we actually appoint them for a fixed term, and then we have the opportunity to review that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. I was a bit concerned in reading these papers that although the title refers to trees and biodiversity, that biodiversity scarcely gets a mention. I think it's a really important aspect looking forward in the development of Westgate, and all we seem to be concerned about is the trees. I don't want to be part of a group that goes around Westgate saying land for trees and not for people. I think it's important that we look at the whole picture, and that biodiversity goes much wider than simply the trees, which can be a more technical area. Thank you.
Councillor Dr. Scott.
Yeah, exactly. So the tree warden is something that has been set up through the Tree and Pond Initiative, I think, something along those lines. So the Broadstairs Town Council and Folkestone Town Council have taken on a tree warden. However, in exactly what you're suggesting, when we were discussing it at the Planning and Highways and Environment Committee, we suggested that it shouldn't just be a tree warden, but it should be a tree and biodiversity warden. So those things, exactly as you've just said, could be added to this volunteer scheme. So we'll be taking on hopefully a tree and biodiversity warden rather than just a tree warden. And Peter also fits this perfectly because he's done a degree in landscaping management. So he's willing to take on that side of things as well.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Also, tree warden is about, from the course that they run, is very much about the health of the existing trees. It's management, tree management, but that's. Are you proposing, Councillor Scott? Councillor Dr. Scott, are you proposing making a proposal, formal?
I think Councillor Matthew Scott was making a point. Sorry.
Councillor Matthew Scott.
Hello. Yeah. It's just a quick question. So no, Peter Hestead, great guy. Certainly knows a lot. I mean, definitely a lot. Very diplomatically minded as well. Not off some organisations where it gets a little bit too territorial with the trees. So my question is just, and ignorance on this one, is he or this person going to be expected? Are they going to survey every tree in Westgate? Is that it, or is it when we just call? I mean, how is it approached? I mean, apologies if I've just not read the paper properly, but is that what's going to be expected?
Councillor Dr. Scott.
So we can kind of decide what his role will be. So Jill will, I think, maybe perhaps ask the warden to perhaps volunteer to do some activities in the town, such as I think he's already volunteered and sort of taken on weeding the train station and things like that. So it will be clearly directed either through Jill or if there's an agreement through the town council meetings or the planning, highway, environment meetings, such as suggesting a task as, could you please look at the trees outside the conservation area and decide if there's any trees that need having a TPO. And I think this is sort of a thing that might take a little bit longer time. So there'll be sort of short-term tasks, but then there'll be longer tasks as well that fit in with the neighbourhood plan. And I think part of the neighbourhood plan was to look at the trees that are relevant to the town and the greens and the biodiversity in the greens, and can we sort of start to mark in Westgate on maps where particularly these relevant trees are and relevant areas for biodiversity hotspots.
Thank you, Councillor. Would you like to make a proposal on this? I mean, it seems that in principle we're going to accept the idea. It just needs to go to HR for Clark. Jill.
Thank you. Yes, so in the report you'll see at the bottom there, I did have a resolution written there. It's to progress the proposal for a tree biodiversity warden by delegating the draft role description to be written by myself in consultation with the chairperson of the Planning, Highway and Environment Committee, the HR committee to be consulted and invited to agree the draft role description before advertising the role on social media and the town council website to invite applications. The role of the tree biodiversity warden should be for a fixed term, no longer than 3 years. Obviously, I've left that open-ended so that can be discussed on the Human Resources Committee.
On a plate. Thank you, Jill. I missed it. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, if I can propose that then, and also have we got a sentence in there that's going to go to the Finance and General Purposes Committee to agree perhaps expenses? Or possible expenses.
I can add that, that's no problem.
Okay, so that's what I'm proposing.
And seconded by Councillor Donaldson, thank you. Lovely. Right, item number 15. Councillor Matthew Scott has a concise report to give on the bins. We've already got two. Jill, yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say, did everyone agree that?
There's me. I do apologise. Thank you, everybody. Right, Councillor Matthew Scott on the bins, and thank you for the two large ones at West Bay and St Mildred's. Brilliant.
3.
3. Oh, 2 and 1, isn't it? 2 and 1, yes. 2 at St Mildred's and 1 at West Bay. Many thanks, because that was dire.
Or,
yes,
or if you include St Mildred's paths, which has also a commercial waste unit in place. So let's just put it this way: St Mildred's is well equipped with bins, so no excuses, but I'm sure we'll find the odd one. So basically go on to the subject at hand. Litter bins, basically. I mean, having a conversation with Jill a couple of years ago, I sort of, along with Councillor Dr. Hannah Scott and Councillor Cornford, there was a bin map. We managed to install, to my understanding, was it 14 bins last? Yeah, 14 bins last time. And yeah, they were very successful. They basically highlighted all the areas which were basically sort of had high footfall and did require a bin. And I feel it's just a case that due to new developments such as the new shelter, we certainly need some more bins. And there's been some proposals, one of which was to basically have 2 bin requests on Sea Road, one nearby the Memorial Garden, and one near the St Mildred's Bay shelter, which was kindly re-repaired by Mike and Peter, amongst other volunteers. There was also apparently one by Beach Road, which was lost due to a disposable barbecue. I don't know if Jill might want to give a bit more information on that one, because I'm not fully aware of that one. So I don't know if you want to come in on that one, Jill.
Yes, so basically it was about 2 weeks ago, over one of the hot weekends, somebody deposited a hot disposable barbecue in one of our green litter bins that melted the bottom, so it had to be removed. So we've lost one.
Excellent. Well, obviously not good about that, but we've established that. Another one which was brought to my attention was apparently a footpath by Minster Road, which is quite a popular destination for dog walkers, is requireable for a bin, predominantly for dog mess, but also for any litter. So certainly another point there. I don't know if anyone's got the maps or anything in front of them to sort of get a gauge. Then Councillor Dr. Hannah Scott also highlighted 2 other areas which are of interest, which is basically the green behind Walmore Castle, between Quex Road and Victoria Avenue. Doesn't have a litter bin and does suffer at times from litter. And then a final place, which was let's have a look here. I'm just having a look at the email. I'm doing this on the fly. Next to the bench outside the community centre. So it's useful to have a bin where people sit and congregate. So I know we do have one just outside the green, and there is one at the top. So this is essentially giving another opportunity for those who don't want to move from the chair. Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's open up to debate. It's not just my decision, it's all of ours. Anyone else who might have ideas where we could benefit. I think the proposal is to have the 6 bins. So is that correct, Jill?
Jill?
That was just the number that I knew there were locations
that
have been raised. Obviously, if anyone feels that they think we should have more, then obviously that's for you all to decide.
So yeah, those are my locations that I feel, but yeah, I'll certainly leave it up for others.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Pennington.
Right, there we go. The need for bins, I think, it goes way beyond all this. I think as far as the locations are proposed, they're probably quite good. I think round the War Memorial there is a small bin at the back of the memorial, which is used at, I would say, at a normal level, but it probably needs something as people go onto the main road, because people often cross from St Mildred's Road and get to the promenade that way. So I think part of the problem with the bins is that they're not very visible, let's say. But basically we just don't have nearly enough bins, and if it was a proposal for 8 or 10 bins, I would go for it as well. Thank you.
May I come back? Yeah, okay, cool. Well, I was just waiting for the chair to confirm. I mean, yeah, that is basically, I mean, this is what the debate is about today, really, to essentially, you know, we let's get more bins. So it's not necessarily limited to 6. We can certainly have more. I mean, I know there's a lot going on with litter at the moment. You know, anyone who follows Facebook, you see it. It's especially by West Bay and St Mildred's. I mean, it does go beyond just having the litter bins in place. I mean, one thing I'd want to certainly avoid is just having a litter bin every 10 yards. And, you know, we are just, you know, that's not the right way. I mean, obviously the thinking we need is the individual self-accountability, which is essentially, okay, I brought something with me. I can easily take it back. If anything, you take a bottle of liquid and you've drunk it all, it's by and large lighter, and you can crush it, you can condense it. It's all these little things that really, you know, where do we start? How much power do we have a town council? you know, reinforce this sort of education of litter. You know, it's something I want to have a discussion with TDC as well. There's loads. I mean, fundamentally though, I do think there are just some key areas, especially by the shelter. I know a resident, Peter, who did help with the shelters. He goes there virtually every day and cleans up the litter. I mean, the other day when I walked past it, I did bump into him. I noticed a load of glass beer bottles there. I was going to go home, pick up a bag, pick it all up. But no, he does that every day. And, you know, we're not going to stop people from littering. I don't know why. It infuriates me. I could go into a long debate about it. But yeah, today, about the bins, I think we've got the funds. Let's utilise it and let's get those bins installed. So, I mean, those were the proposals I placed. And certainly, if there's any more, please.
Scott? Oh, sorry.
Me?
Yes, Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I think the one of the hotspots are usually where people kind of sit down. So I think, you know, if we can have bins near to where people are sitting, like benches and shelters and things like that, then it does minimise the rubbish. So there's a bench. The reason why I kind of suggested the bench by the community centre is for some reason there's always litter around that bench. And I know that there's a litter bin sort of on the corner. However, that I think what that does is kind of capture people kind of going to the schools and coming back again. So that's the reason why I kind of suggested a bin next to this bench, just to prevent, you know, just seeing rubbish there constantly, which often I then pick up and then put in the bin, you know, down the way. And then this other little green that hasn't got a litter bin, it has got a dog mess bin, but it hasn't got a litter bin. So that could be quite useful because it is a little green in itself. And then this footpath that goes, it crosses Minster Road. It used to have a dog mess bin, and that's disappeared. So if we had a bin that could take everything, that would be really useful, because I know that that's there's a high demand for that. But there may be other places that people want bins as well, and I think all we need to do is be mindful that every bin that we suggest is another bin that our operatives need to empty. So we kind of need to think about their route and how it might suit their route as well. So I'm just sort of being mindful that if we go a bit OTT with all the bins, then actually they've only got X number of hours to collect the rubbish and go around to all these bins. So I think it probably needs to be a bit of a balance as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wallen.
Right, yeah, this might seem a bit obtuse, but it is actually possibly relevant. A lot of these bins are by the beaches and don't seem to get used properly. And of course, when we're talking about people getting in the way of cyclists on exactly the same place, what do we say? We said common sense. If they haven't got the common sense to use the bin when they should do, then they probably haven't got the common sense to get out of the way of the bicycle. Common sense, really.
Thank you, Councillor Wallen.
Bit obtuse maybe, but a fact.
Thank you. I get the impression that this is Councillor Scott's proposal, and he's obviously spoken to the clerk, so the number of bins, 6, is doable by the operatives and on the budget. Can we just firm up on the locations? Because I've got the community centre bench, the bridle path at Minster Road, the green at the back of the Greek Community Centre, Sea Road, which is, I'm not quite sure where exactly on Sea Road, and definitely up at Cambourne Avenue. Is that right, Councillor Matthew Scott?
Yeah, so coming in, so Sea Road, there were 2 proposals, but I mean, just counting what we've done there, that is 6. I mean, it was certainly essential for one by the shelter. The other one that was highlighted to myself from our town clerk was Beach Road, where the one had actually been lost by the disposable barbecue. I mean, I really do want to push for the shelter by St Mildred's Bay.
Yeah.
That is a no-brainer, and as Councillor Dr. Hannah Scott said, you know, that is a seating location. That is going to be a prime location for a bin and where waste is going to congregate. So, yeah. I mean, again, it is up to obviously the whole members, but I'm in agreement with the majority of that. I do believe the Beach Road one is required to be replaced, though.
So that would be 7. Is that right? With the Beach Road one? Would you like to make that proposal, Councillor Scott, and then it can be seconded or not?
I will have a question to the clerk. I mean, with that extra bin, Jill, is that still going to be feasible with our operatives?
Yeah, so an additional one would be absolutely fine.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, then I'd like to propose that we install 7 town council bins with the aforementioned locations.
Thank you. And seconder, I think, did we have a seconder with you, Councillor Donaldson, previously? You're muted.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'll second it. Yeah.
Yes, you did second that earlier, didn't you? Yes. All right. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes, probably.
Is everybody in favour? Finally, I've remembered. Lovely. Thank you all. Item number 16, the collective funding proposal for the COVID-19 response. We had this on the agenda before and we decided to defer it until tonight. We need to make a decision. Do councillors have any comments on how we should distribute this money? Jill.
Thank you. So I've shared with you all the information that the District Council sent to us about the Town and Parish Council funding proposal, because we didn't have this information in time for the last meeting. So I hope you've had an opportunity to look at that. It talks about the distribution of funds and the proportioning of distribution, and also the information how to make a contribution if we wish to. Also, I know that members are aware we've been supporting the Lifeboat project through this crisis. So we've been collecting the food from the Ramsgate Town Council and bringing that to Westgate for the Lifeboat project. And also all the food parcels that residents have in surplus have been going as well as donations that have been directed to us. So I've got some information for you all this evening. The Lifeboat project is more than just the food donations, and obviously now we're in the recovery phase after the coronavirus. A lot of organisations are looking at how they can help support people in recovery. So just an update for you. The Lifeboat project have delivered 641 community packages. They've delivered to 16 care homes across the district in total, and they've supported approximately 1,800 individuals. It's averaged 54 food packages weekly. They've sourced additional external funding to ensure that their project can continue to support residents even though lockdown is easing. They're also developing a phased return for their social inclusion club in the lodge, and they're aiming to make the club available as a community hub, which will be accessible for the wider community to give support, refreshments and access to a community pantry, which is what they want to start. They've also launched their Fit and Fed programme. They're working in partnership with the Hartsdown Academy and working on sustainability plans to ensure they can support schools and the local community. And they've also like to deliver some community mental health aware training sessions. They're hoping that they could work with the town council and we can provide support, and then they would provide the guidance and signposting for anyone who's dealing with poor mental health and well-being. And equally, this gives them the opportunity to support others as well. Thank you.
I am unmuted. Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. Yes, I think what Lifeboat has been doing is fantastic, and along with several other organisations, I think they have really made the difference when it comes to the local community response to the coronavirus crisis. However, it's my understanding that central government passed millions of pounds to district councils to support this kind of work. So far as I know, the funds which went to TDC simply went to help reduce their deficit and weren't necessarily directed at this kind of action. And I find it a bit much that we as local councils who have far fewer resources are being asked to step in. Unless somebody can show me otherwise, then I will abstain.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. I think that the funding from government doesn't actually meet the previous levels of funding that TDC had, which is an argument for us to support in part with this £2,000. There is an argument for us to do a 50-50. 50 to the lifeboat and 50 to TDC, but that's for councillors to decide. And presumably we've looked at this since the papers came out. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Dr. Hannah Scott.
I was wondering, with regards to Shield's information about Lifeboat, the community and the club hub, is that going to be in Westgate area or Margate area?
So, yeah. So that is actually where they are now, in the lodge. That's where they're going to be having the community hub, in the club there.
Yeah, so that's in Westgate, Grenville Lodge, opposite St Saviour's. Councillor Matthew Scott.
Yeah, I think when we spoke about this last time, I mean, by and large, I think it was sort of, Councillor Pauline O'Connor who suggested splitting the fund, because what we need to realise is that obviously this is going to be a donation, and while Westgate does have its areas, it's not a particularly impoverished area, whereas we could actually, hopefully, fingers crossed, allow this to actually hit areas off Thanet which are drastically underfunded. I mean, there's areas which don't have a town or a parish council and would benefit from a contribution. I mean, if the Lifeboat project helps everyone within the district, then yeah, that's great. I can see that certainly being utilised. So I think that's one thing, you know, we need to just be really mindful of it. This is a donation, and really it gives us the ability to help those who might not be able to really benefit from it, especially on district wide. And I think that is fundamentally what the Thanet District Council want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Scott. So you're saying, have you got any percentages there? I mean, how much do you feel that we should? How much, in your opinion?
I mean, it's hard. I mean, if we look at it on a grand scale, I mean, as you rightly pointed out, I mean, what came from central government and then went into Thanet District Council, I mean, you say $1 million to an individual, that's great, but on local authority, we know how much everything costs just to get a couple of lines painted on the ground. It's just a joke, but to get that to one side, I mean, I'm thinking the 50-50, it just pays well. I mean, District Council, they have helped us. They have certainly supported the Town Council, in my opinion, in certain things. That could be up for a debate, but that's how I feel, following on from Pauline O'Connor, really.
Thank you again. Do any other councillors have anything to add to that? Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I agree with Matt, actually, and I think it would be, you know, we are trying to create a very positive relationship with Thanet District Council, and I think a 50-50 split, you know, the money's there, and as Matt says, you know, £1 million to an individual is an awful lot of money, but to a council, it's just, you know, this week's petty cash kind of thing. So I would support a 50-50 split.
Thank you. Councillor Page.
A question to Councillor Matthew Scott. Are you able to give us any examples of the help that you were talking about, particularly areas, groups of people within Thanet? Do you have any examples of what you were talking about where this fund pooling will be utilised within Thanet?
I mean, I don't.
Can I pin you down on that?
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't want to pinpoint somewhere and kind of sort of degrade it. But I mean,
that's not what the question is. It's just ask if you can highlight and give examples of areas where this fund pooling will be used within Thanet.
Okay, well, it'll be used district-wide, and to my understanding, it could highlight community groups such as the Cliftonville West community and support those who've suffered from domestic abuse, help those who need food parcels, as well as sanitary products. So things that basically we've been doing, food banks and that, but to give it that added boost, because during this time through the pandemic, where people have relied on these food parcels, these food banks, and all these community organisations have been stretched thin. And I think that's what Thanet District Council proposal is to do, is to sort of share that fund and basically bolster up a lot of what these community organisations lost through having to work diligently and hard to actually keep people afloat at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Dr. Scott.
Yeah, I think you know, not everybody here has lived in Westgate all of their lives. They lived in other towns in Thanet as well. And you know, we're not a little island within an island. We are part of Thanet, and there are areas in Thanet that are extremely poverty stricken. And in order to equalise that, and I think I was the one to suggest 50-50 last meeting, to perhaps, you know, half of this money go back into a pool for TDC to target those particularly poverty stricken areas, which you know, we know where they are. That's where the Margate millions should be going, and it's, you know, it's along the areas of North Down Road and Newington area and Ramsgate as well. So I think in order to equalise and support other people in Thanet, then we do have a benefit in Westgate of being you know, not as poverty stricken as other areas. So I would back that proposal again.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Have we changed your mind, Councillor Pennington? Have we changed your mind? You're muted.
Can't hear you.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, there are, firstly, I think it's TDC's responsibility to spread the government money in accordance with the objectives that were set. Secondly, I'm not sure that we have the mandate in terms of what the precept is levied for to use it outside Westgate. I mean, I'm prepared to be advised on that point. The first one is more difficult to answer because it's fungibility, and I think money's going into TDC, and frankly, we don't know what happens to it.
Thank you. I mean, I must admit, I've taken it for granted that we are mandated to share our portion. Jill?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, yes. Right, we need to make a proposal. Who would like to propose the way forward? Councillor Green. Councillor Green? Councillor Green, did you raise your hand? We need to make a proposal first. Councillor Dr. Scott, would you like to make the proposal?
I'm not too sure who brought the item up in the beginning.
Well, it was a general,
whose agenda item is this?
It isn't. It's a general. Jill.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, one of members who wants the 50-50 split, because I think there are a few members now that that's what they've proposed. So I think if one of you that wants to propose the 50-50, and then obviously if there's a second, and then you can have a vote. I think that's the best way forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Councillor
propose it.
We need some wording for it. Sorry, Councillor Green. I did think that you were going to propose it, but we need to formulate the words.
My mic.
Sorry, I've lost you here. What did you say, Councillor Green?
Well, we need to agree a set of words, don't we?
Yes, yes. We need
Suitable
to agree
words.
the proposal.
Yeah, but along the lines of, well, I propose that the money that's been that we've got sitting there is split 50-50 between TDC and the Lifeboat project, basically.
Thank you. And Councillor Donaldson, did you second that?
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Is everybody in favour of 50-50 split, the Lifeboat project and TDC? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And against? Who does not agree with the proposal? Abstentions. Abstinence. Abstainers. Abstainers. I got there. 3. Councillor Pennington, Page, and Wallen. But that's carried. So we will split the money. Thank you. And the final item, which is the addendum item number 17, to renew the insurance on the truck, which is a formality. Am I correct, Jill?
So this actually is the vehicle insurance for the year. It's an annual renewal, and we have our insurance broker, Cayman Company, which are the recognised brokers for local councils. So they've done all the work, looked at the quotes for us, and their recommendation I've sent to members, which is the policy here, that's with MS Amlin, and the actual cost is £771.10 for the year, and that includes the insurance premium tax.
Thank you. Is everybody, are all members happy with this? Would somebody like to propose that we accept this? Councillor Pennington? Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Wallen. Thank you. And everyone in favour? Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jill. There's just one thing that I omitted to say in my announcements at the start, which is that I'm going to be standing down from the Finance and General Purposes Committee, as Councillor Pennington did previously, because the Vice Chair is obviously Chair of the Finance, and there's no need for us both to be on the committee. Was it all right to say that now, Jill? As I forgot at the beginning. All right, thank you. Thank you everybody for attending, for your attention and your voting, and go carefully, and we'll see you next time, which is on the 11th of June.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Westgate.
Yeah,
Westgate.
thank you, Jill.
And thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Just for the
Bye,
benefit, the 11th of July, yeah?
11th of July, yes.
No worries.